Assalamualaikum, I am Rayhana Hanani, the leader of the group presentation. Now, we are going to analyzing the text based on the 7 criteria of textuality. But before we jump further into our main discussion, I would like to take a moment to introduce the member of the group. First and foremost is myself, Rayhana Hanani. I'll be presenting the introduction and cohesion. The second member of our group is Nur Fadila bint Azmi, which she has been working on cohesion and coherent. Next, Nur Aina Ziha bint Zulkarnain, which she has been doing a research on intentionality and situationality. Third member is Nur Shamimi bint Afendi, which she has working on intertextuality and informative. Last but not least is Nur Idini binti Alfi. She will be presenting on acceptability and conclude the whole presentation. This is the overview of our presentation. For introduction of the presentation, Newbert and G.R. Shreve define textuality as the complex set of features that text must have to be considered text. What is textuality? Textuality in discourse analysis refers to the examination of all attributes of the text to discover the meaning of a written work or communication. There are 7 criteria of textuality. First and foremost, we have cohesion. Cohesion is the structure and content of a sentence or text that link together to create meaning, while coherence is the semantic property of discourse, based on the interpretation of each individual sentence relative to the interpretation of other sentence. The next criteria of textuality is intentionality. Intentionality is the text are created with a specific goal or message in mind. Understanding the author's intent is critical for precisely comprehending and interpreting the text. For the fourth criteria of textuality is acceptability. Acceptability is the one of the textual criteria that means how well the recipient responds to the text and accept it. Thus, it deals with the receiving the text by recipient whether it's coherent, harmonious, and beneficial to him or her, the recipient. Affirmative consent, the balance between the unknown and uncertain, expected and unexpected in a text. Informativity measured how much information the text provides, whether it's introducing a new concept or elaborating on existing ones. For situationality, situationality is the factor which makes a text relevant to a current situation or occurrence. Knowledge about the background, cultural reference, and situational factor helps in interpreting the text accurately. Lastly, intertextuality. Intertextuality is the way in which the production and reception of a given text depend upon the participant knowledge. A text contains reference, allusions, or connection to the other text, cultural elements, or shared knowledge. Intertextuality allows for a deeper understanding where readers recognize and interpret this connection. This is the media attached, pause if needed. Cohesion device refers to the conjunction, connectives, and pronouns used to link the parts of the piece of writing. There are 8 cohesion devices. For the first textuality is cohesion. Under the cohesive device, recurrence. Recurrence is a direct repetition of elements, sentences found in a media text with food production and consumption chain. Explanation. The text repeatedly emphasizes the stage or processes involved in this change. This repetition reinforces the central theme of reducing food waste throughout the entire chain to mitigate environmental impacts. Next part will be proceeded by Nur Fadila.
And then we will move into the next aspect of cohesion that we find in the media text is a parallelism. Parallelism is known as a rhetorical devices that is used to emphasize the relationship between concepts by expressing them using grammatical construction that are conceptually comparable. From the review, we have found some elements of semantic parallelism. According to Abed 2021, he said the best way to accomplish the semantic parallelism is when we link 2 identical sentences together. The underlying reason is to avoid any monotony and ineffectiveness in reading. For example, in paragraph 1 in line 3 from the media text, they use the food loss and waste are indirectly accompanied. And the other one is the psychology-oriented approaches and social practice theory. So from here, food loss and food waste are the two identical sentences, but they are linked together with the word and. And the second example, the psychology-oriented approaches are linked together with the social practice theory using the sentence as well as. The other branch of cohesion that was found is paraphrase. It is best defined as the same element that was repeated but being shifted in different level of approaches. Based on our review of the media text, we found three elements of paraphrase. From here, we can see that food waste is the recurrence that has been repeated many times, but it was used in different settings. The second criteria of textuality that we want to cover is about coherence. Others state that coherence is the situation to approach the sense of the text that was measured on its appropriateness on the overall contextual occurrence. From the review, this media text has successfully met the objective of global coherence, which we can see it is a well-organized structure because the writers has covered the topic, sentence, body text, and the conclusion in the chosen media text. For example, in the paragraph 1, in line 1 is about the main topic. So writers' main topics about food produce is getting waste or loss. The writers also have covered a concise and precise thesis statement that provides the main topic, which is to tunnel down the discussion in their literature review. Other than that, from the analysis in the paragraph 2 and 3, the writers add extra detail about the context, where they add the data from their study and the effect of the food waste increment. Lastly, in the fourth paragraph, they include a conclusion. It is a well-concluded conclusion since they indicate the objective of their review. The second branch of coherence that we found is transition in coherence. Transition is important in connecting sentences in a paragraph. This method is crucial to foster better comprehension and understanding in readers. Firstly, the cause and effect transition. From here, the writer used this transition to indicate that the latter event was arrived because of the former event. From the text, the writer used as, the, and in response. The second transition is additive transition, which was used to give extra information for a better comprehension. For example, it used to be more precise. The last transition is the constructive transition. It is used when to point out any contrary information within the context. For example, in the paragraph 3 in line 2 and 9, the writers use the word despite and however. From here, we can conclude that coherence plays an important part to make excellent comprehension. For example, like the context in the chosen media text, which is very clear, logic, and consistent.
For my part, I will present the two textuality, which is situationality and intentionality. For the first sentence that I found in the text in terms of intentionality is in this paper, we present a literature review of the existing scholarly discussion on the reasons for consuming food waste in a systematic and transparent and replicable way. The reason for this sentence is it clearly states the intention of the paper, indicating that the authors are intentionally presenting a literature review on consumer food waste. For the second sentence that I found is, we review and analyze evidence on the factors impeding or promoting consumer food waste, and based on this analysis, discuss the contributions of psychology-oriented approaches as well as social practice theory. Okay, the reason from the sentence is it demonstrates intentionality by outlining a structured approach to reviewing and analyzing evidence as well as discussing specific contributions from psychology-oriented approaches and social practice theory. The last sentence is subsequently, we provide insights into policy approaches as well as business options for tackling the issues raised by such evidence and make suggestions for future research. Okay, for this sentence, it indicates an intentional effort to provide practical insights into policy and business approaches based on the evidence presented in the literature review.
And now I will explain about acceptability. What is acceptability? Acceptability is the idea in English speech refers to how appropriate or suitable a text or statement is in a certain setting or context. It depends on a number of variables, including the communication aims, the listener's expectations, the speaker intentions, the social norms, the cultural background, and the pragmatic laws. In English language, acceptability is a dynamic and subjective attribute rather than a fixed or objective one. Depending on the speaker, the audience, the subject, the genre, the mode, the media, and the communication goal, it could change. As a result, while determining whether a statement or piece of writing is appropriate, it's critical to take the situation and context into account. Sentences are understood and approved in relation to both pragmatic content and preceding sentences. In fact, as we have seen, the preceding sentence set may be empty. We will go through some examples of acceptability sentences and explanations from the article. From the paragraph 1, line 3, the sentences as the production of food is resource intensive, food losses and wastes are indirectly accompanied by a broad range of environmental impacts such as soil erosion, deforestation, water and air pollution, as well as greenhouse gas emissions that occur in the processes of food production, storage, transportation, and waste management from Murad 2016. So, the acceptability that we can see from the paragraph 1, line 3 is the terms like resource intensive, food losses and waste, environmental impacts, etc. are used appropriately. The fact that it makes a connection between food waste and environmental effect complies with the pragmatic criterion of relevance. It presents a factual assertion in order to fulfill the communication purpose of informing. Another examples from the article is from the paragraph 2, line 6. As the sentence goes, along the food supply chain, private households represent the largest food waste fraction. And the acceptability that we can find in the sentences is by citing the information's original source. It adheres to citation guidelines. It makes use of suitable language such as private households, food waste fraction, and food supply chain. By offering an important statistic on the subject of consumer food waste, it complies with the pragmatic criterion of relevance. It presents a factual assertion in order to fulfill the communication purpose of informing.
Today I'm going to present about informativity. So as you can see, a lot of informativity in this media text is given. So I will give you some example for paragraph 1, which is a food loss and waste statistic. Nearly 1/3 of globally produced food for human consumption amounting to 1.3 billion tons annually is lost or wasted. This is a reference to Gustafsson et al. 2011. The second informativity from paragraph 1 is about environmental impacts. Food production's resource-intensive nature contributes to environmental issues, including soil erosions, deforestation, water and air pollution, and greenhouse gas emissions. These impacts occur throughout the entire food production, storage, transportation, and waste management processes. This is from Murad 2016, and the last one from paragraph 1 is about emission reduction potential. The scenarios for Europe suggest a substantial potential for reducing emission by addressing food waste at various stages in the food production and consumption chains. This is from Rutten et al. 2013 and Scanners et al. 2016. So we move on to the paragraph 2. For the first one, about recognition of food waste as an urgent issue, the opening sentence emphasized that food waste is increasingly acknowledged as an urgent issue among governments, businesses, NGOs, academics, and the general public. And the second one is existence of a growing evidence base. The paragraph mentions a mounting evidence base on the quantities of food wasted and the related emissions along the food production consumption chain. This is citing examples such as Beretta et al. 2013 and Jabo et al. 2016. The next part is identifications of private household as major contributors. Private households are identified as the largest food waste fractions along the food supply chain. This is according to BIOS 2010. The next one is importance of preventing food waste at the household level. The text underscores the significance of preventing food waste at the final stages of the supply chain, particularly at the household level to combat climate change. This is citing from Parfit et al. 2010. And the last one from paragraph 2 is the consequence of household food waste. The last sentence explains the consequence of food waste at the household level by stating that all energy and greenhouse gas emissions invested in the productions, processing, transportations, cooling, and preparations of food wasted are in vain.
The next criteria is situationality. The sentence is, globally, nearly one-third of food produced for human consumption is lost or wasted, equaling a total of 1.3 billion tons of food per year. The reason from this sentence is the sentence situates the reader globally by providing specific statistics on food waste, establishing the context for the discussion. The next sentence is, as the production of food is resource intensive, food losses and wastes are indirectly accompanied by a broad range of environmental impacts, such as soil erosion, deforestation, water and air pollution, as well as greenhouse gas emissions that occur in the processes of food production, storage, transportation, and waste management. The reason from this sentence is this sentence situates the issue of food waste within a broader environment context, outlining the impacts across various stages of the food supply chain. Okay, and for the last sentence is, along the food supply chain, private households represent the largest food waste fraction. The reason from this sentence situates the problem specifically within households, addressing the critical point where substantial food waste occurs. These highlighted sentences showcase the criteria of situationality by establishing a global context, outlining environmental impacts, and focusing on specific stages of the supply chain. Additionally, sentences demonstrate intentionally through explicit statements of purpose, structured literature review, and providing insights into practical approaches.
So the next one is intertextuality. So in this media text, we can see 4 intertextuality in paragraph 1, which are, the first one is a reference to Rutten et al. 2013 about scenarios for Europe reducing emissions through the reduction of food waste. And the last one is the potential for reducing emissions through the reduction of food waste along the stages of the food production and consumption chain is attributed to Scanners et al. 2016. And from paragraph 2, we can see 3 references, which is the first one, the mentions of the evidence based on quantities of food wasted and related emissions refer to the studies by Beretta et al. 2013 and Edjabo et al. 2016. The second one is a reference to BIOS 2010, which is the statement that private households represent the largest food waste fractions. And the third one is reference to Parfit et al. 2010. He mentions the importance of preventing food waste at the final stages of the supply chains. And from paragraph 3, we can see 3 references, which is the first one, reference to Graham Rowie et al. 2040. He mentions the relative paucity of field research on consumer-generated food waste. And the second one is the statements about the issues of food waste and sustainable practices around food are multifaceted. This is attributed to Evans 2040, and the last intertextuality in this media text is the literature review provided by Tyberg and Tonjes 2016, which is mentions they are focusing on cultural, political, economic, and geographic drivers of food waste, with a particular focus on the US. So that's all for intertextuality.
And finally, we have come to the conclusion. To conclude, the analysis results reveal that the news articles taken met the 7 standards of textuality based on the Big-Grundy and Dressler's theory. And even though the level of cohesion, coherence, intentionality, acceptability, informativity, situationality, and intertextuality of each text varies, they show positive efforts to always present reliable information to their audience, and therefore can be considered trustworthy text. As this study has its own limitation, further analysis need to be done with more articles and more detailed indicators of each standard to make it easier to portray the textuality of news articles. More studies can also be done concerning the use of the text in language teaching and learning. So that's all from us. Thank you.